Hello, everybody. We have Mitchell today with us. And Mitchell, in two sentences, what was your business idea and how does it change the world?
so, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. The business idea that changes the world is the name of my TEDx. We are losing our humanity, and I'm tired of watching it happen. So, if we do nothing more than act credibly to each other, we will be more humane to each other.
Excellent. Uh, the title of this session is Executive Abundance for Modern CEOs. Uh, can you explain a bit what does it mean?
Sure. So, where I'm going now is I am in a doctorate program, and my dissertation's on the concept of executive abundance. In the past, I've sat on the board of a public firm. I've run four CEO networking groups for a decade and have coached hundreds of individuals or hundreds of companies. And if I add the individuals, it's now over 1,200. And so what I'm going to say is when I sat on the board of a public firm, we focused on one primary stakeholder. We focused on investors. As a matter of fact, I had fiduciary responsibility to the investors. What that misses in the bigger picture of the thing are four other stakeholder groups. And so the other stakeholder groups that are part of executive abundance is bringing abundance to five stakeholder groups. So in addition to the investors, it's important to focus on at first the internal engine, the CEO, their abundance, so their health and their family, right? So that's one, I just clump that together as a stakeholder group. That's the internal engine of
Mhm.
of the CEO themselves. But the internal engine of the company, another stakeholder group, are the employees.
Mhm.
If you create self-empowered employees, they will take care of the fourth stakeholder group, the customers.
Mhm.
And all of that resides within a community. So the fifth stakeholder group is the community. So executive abundance is bringing abundance to family and self, bringing abundance to employees, customers, investors, and the community.
Excellent. So, in one of the previous podcasts, one of my guests says that one of the best business advice he got is be careful who you marry. What do you think about that?
So um, the the interesting part is if your lens is 100% focused on investors, you're making decisions that bring money in the door. You're making decisions that have and allows you to show on a quarter to quarter basis that you're improving. In essence, you're living in a world of short termitis.
Mhm.
That may allow you to bring in and have either customers or partners that you know are not right, but bring in the type of revenue in order for you to look good by some outside metric.
Mhm.
If you start looking at the bigger picture of bringing abundance to the employee base, so for instance, bringing in AI is potentially a negative to a large number of employees unless you're training and educating the employee base to be able to use AI more effectively and add the human compassion component of to the AI they're using,
Mhm.
right? So that would be an example of marrying, in this case, a technology that
Mhm.
could not necessarily be good for some segment of the population, the employee population. So the answer is a lot of times we um, will take on partners, will work with companies, will do types of things in business because our lens is very myopic. Is this bringing us the right ROI?
Mhm.
And the only measure for ROI at the moment is, hey, are we making enough profit?
Mhm.
Now, if you extend the lens to focus on other communities, so you have a much more broader sense of what you're looking at, the types of decisions you're going to make are going to be a whole lot different.
Excellent. So, what would you say is the best business advice you have received?
You know, it was, I don't know if this was the best. Um, in Silicon Valley, we talk about morphing. I personally have morphed in my life at least 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's been the best, but I will tell you the advice I got just 7 months ago.
Okay.
And it's something that I absolutely knew my entire life. But as somebody who lives in Silicon Valley, as a Silicon Valley thought leader, I would build stuff and I'd offer it out there and people would buy it. So
Mm-hmm.
I never really worried about this piece of advice. And 7 months ago, I had a friend of mine slap me in the face, guy by the name of Ken Cook, and give me this advice. It wasn't a physical slap, by the way, it was virtual. Here's what he said: sell them what they want, deliver what they need. And what he was able to do in sharing that advice is point out that I had spent 5.5 years of my life focusing on what people need.
Yeah.
And the truth is, so I ended up between 2019 and 2020, I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility, came up with a great definition of what credibility is. For those who are physically seeing stuff, it's behind us now. Credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And so I then spent 2.5 years creating a business that allowed me to create a 6-figure income selling credibility. But I wasn't making the transformation the way I wanted to. It wasn't a world-changing business. It was a nice leisure business. Mitchell makes money.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, hey, let's create a clarity certification program. And so I did that, quickly grew that to be a 6-figure business as well. And then Ken comes along and he gives me this thought, because here's exactly what he said, Robert. He goes, Mitchell, we get on the call. He goes, Mitchell, I know every living marketing legend alive today, and there's nobody who does clarity the way you do.
Mm-hmm.
So my head was like really big, right? He goes, tell me how many people don't have clarity. And I go, 98%. So based on my research, 98% of people don't have clarity. 90% of people are born, live, and die without ever knowing their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he goes, Mitchell, I'm going to say something you're not going to like. Now, first, he expanded my head. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, can't imagine what it could be. Robert, I want you to think about a balloon. So if you're looking at a balloon and you take a pin and you put it in the balloon, how quickly it deflates, that's exactly what he did for my head in 3 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
I know, it's crazy. Here's what he said. He goes, Mitchell, you're world class at something that 98% of your audience doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have it because they either think they have it and they don't, or they don't think they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, that number sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was interesting is we want friends in our life like that. We want friends in our life who will look at what you're doing and sort of put you on a perspective. And what I realized is that clarity and credibility are what people need, but not what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they want? The executive coaching business I do, if you're a CEO of a fast growing company, you want to lead your company with executive abundance.
Mm-hmm.
It's been my executive coaching practice. I just didn't put a name on it before. I ended up 7 months ago, as soon as I heard that from Ken and started thinking about what do people want, okay, I ended up buying a LinkedIn agency.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I bought one is, what do they want? Well, it's business owners escaping slimy LinkedIn sales tactics,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that business owner who is using LinkedIn because that's where their business is,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to be caught up in all of the marketing cookie cutter stuff that feels uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, let me answer this and then I'll let you answer the next question. I've been on LinkedIn since before they were making money. Now a couple 100,000 people can say that. but I'm going to say something that nobody else can say. I was in the room with two of the five founders, and I was commissioned to write and publish LinkedIn's first book. So since then, I've looked at a couple 100,000 LinkedIn profiles, and I work with my clients, and I will be happy to give this to anyone. I will give you the 5% of functionality that delivers 80% of value on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I work with my clients on. And it's been very valuable to do both, because the truth is, at a corporate level, sometimes it takes a while to move the ship.
Mm-hmm.
At an individual level, it's a whole lot faster. They're both a form of executive abundance.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So you were talking about your superpower, and to connect it with what's your CPoP? Can you expand on this?
So I came up with a term. Actually, let me rephrase that. I downloaded this term when I first started focusing on the clarity interviews. I asked myself, what am I going to do? And I woke up in the morning and I came up with 5 questions. And the first question is, what is your CPoP? And that's turned into, what is your customer point of possibilities? And the formula is really simple. And the problem is, even when I gift the formula to people, there's a 98% chance that they're not going to focus on it, because we've been brainwashed with so much marketing cookie cutter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So my superpower is being able to sit with any company or any human and help them articulate in less than 10 words where they are executing on their purpose. Because Robert, if you could wake up in the morning and you could execute on your purpose, you could do the types of things that you were meant to do, that you love to do, that bring you joy, guess what? You're happy. If you're the CEO, you're happy. If your employees are doing it, they're happy. And that would almost immediately eliminate, or at least allow the tables to turn from employee disengagement, from being 75% of employees are disengaged, to making a whole larger percentage being much more engaged if they're waking up in the morning and they're doing what they were meant to do. They are doing and enjoying what they do.
Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting, or is it your experience, that most of the companies lack exactly this clarity? What is their purpose, and repeat it on daily basis to see it and to expand on it?
You know, no, it's a great question, because I I I've just started. It was around that time frame. It was around 7 months ago that I actually cloned the phrase executive abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is I called up one of my friends who runs a conference, and he goes, Mitchell, I got to hear this. You got to keynote my conference. So I got to speak at the Purpose Summit on executive abundance. And as I'm there, I'm listening to lots of people talking about purpose, and purpose has so many different definitions and focus.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to say is, and there is this concept, and there are a bunch of consultants and coaches which will help the CEO understand what's the company's purpose. I want to step back and look at a different perspective, because what I said, and this is a nuance in words, I will help the company articulate in less than 10 words where they're executing on their purpose. That's different than saying, what is their purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because where you're executing on your purpose today can and should change over time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Technically, your purpose is always the same. And I just want to say, although in a lot of cases, purpose do change as well. Understanding one's purpose is such a topic that's so hard for people to wrap their arms around, that I'd rather say, okay, how are you executing on purpose today? And so the interesting part, if companies can articulate where they're executing on their purpose, and that's the framework, and let's put it in a different way, that's the playground the company plays in. Then as you start delegating down to different aspects of the organization, how does finance, how do they execute on their purpose that rolls up to the bigger purpose?
Mhm.
And you keep doing that because finance, if they're internally focused, does it in a different way. Marketing does it in a different way. Um, it it feels to me that, and this is why I'm getting the PhD, because there are definitely models out there today that are similar in concept. B Corps in the United States is one that's similar in concept. Purpose-driven companies. There were a lot of those at the Purpose Summit. That is something that's similar in concept. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking for other approaches that are out there, and what have they done that worked? What slowed down their adoption, and what should executive abundance be? How do we get more people excited about that? And that's why I'm doing the academic research.
Mhm. Okay, so if somebody would like to work with you, what can they expect? How long? How do you approach it? How much, I don't know, effort should they put in, and things like that? Just practical things. How does it look like?
No, it's a good question. So let's look at two different audiences, right? There's the corporate audience, and then there's the business owner audience.
Mhm.
So business owners, somebody between 1 and 20 employees. The corporate owners, typically between 5 and 100 million. Okay.
Yeah.
That said, I've worked with larger companies. I like the smaller companies because you can affect change a little bit faster.
Mhm. That's
So,
good.
what should they expect? Well, if I'm going to summarize, they should expect a mirror that speaks back.
Mhm.
That would be my summary. Um, the point that every coach needs to recognize is, and I'll say this, I can't change anybody. I don't change anybody. What I do is I listen to who the person is, and we'll start off with a simple thing. If I'm asked by a board of directors to coach the CEO, I need to have a conversation with the CEO, and I need to see one thing of the 10 values of credibility. I need to see that they're coachable.
Mhm.
If they're not coachable, the answer is no, I can't.
Yeah.
Because I don't change anybody. What I do is I listen to who they are. I listen to the framework they're living in today,
Mhm.
and I may give them another. So there's 5 or 6 different frameworks I work with. I will give them another framework in which they can then view the world in a different way.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to summarize, what do I do? Um, I will guarantee in a relatively short period of time that whoever I'm working with will just have a completely different viewpoint of who they are and how they fit into not just the business, but into the world. And I could always guarantee that. I'm not sure what that guarantee means, but that's what I do. Um, the if I'm putting on the hat of a stakeholder centered coach, so I'm classically trained in Marshall Goldsmith's stakeholder centered coaching. We guarantee in a year that if the person is known for a particular behavioral trait that they want to upgrade, that they will have been recognized in with their stakeholders to have changed that trait. We guarantee that will happen in less than a year.
Mhm.
Right. That's a very specific. You get asked me a generic question, so I'm giving you a couple of different answers.
Yeah.
Um, Generally speaking, the from the executive abundance perspective, the complete viewpoint and landscape will change, and I will do my best to be fireable as quickly as possible. Because my goal, if I'm working with somebody who's a do-it-yourselfer, and so imagine I've done this 1,200 times. I've listened to who they are and given them their CPOP, or the CEO giving them their CPOP. 90% of the time, they're going to get out of alignment with that CPOP somewhere between 2 hours to 2 weeks. But 10% of the time, I've now changed their lives for the rest of their lives. And so if you're a do it yourselfer, I'm going to gift you whatever tools you need to be successful,
Mhm.
because then you become a good referral partner.
Mhm.
right? I'm looking for the people who want the done with you solution. They actually want the mirror who talks back. They want somebody when the person does an action or an event or looking for advice, just to say, hey, listen, this is the playground you said you play in. Why are you playing this other playground? Right. And to me, I love looking at chaos and turning it into a model that people can so quickly put their arms around.
So that's
Did
what.
that answer your question?
Yeah,
I meandered a little bit, but
yeah, great, great. So, what surprised you most in your entrepreneurial journey, in a good or in a bad way?
you know, I learned a really cool lesson in 2001 that repeated itself in 2020. And so I left. I was working for Sun Microsystems. I left in 1997. Became an e-commerce consultant during the dot-com days. During the dot-com days, all you had to do is be able to spell the word e-commerce, and money started coming your way. Well, I was also in Silicon Valley, so it became a lot easier, right? Um, and what happened is it was also a really nice, robust six-figure business. And if you remember, there was something called the dot bomb.
Mhm.
It was in 2001, where all of a sudden the entire marketplace said, e-commerce is not going to work. Using the internet inside companies are not going to work. There was a huge backlash. Well, my business went from six figures to almost zero. Now, at the time, Robert, I was a part owner of a place called CEO Networking. We were running CEO networking groups. I was making 60,000 a year running the CEO networking. I was just about ready to say, hey, listen, I don't have time or money. I can't afford to make so little money with the amount of effort to put in. And when my e-commerce business went to zero, 60,000 a year seemed really good, right? Um, and the same thing happened in 2020. I was running a book publishing company. We've published over 750 books. Where I would make a lot of money is focusing on the right speakers, coaches, consultants who were doing speaking at public events or at corporations. They would buy books. I'd make 50% of the profit on the back end. And when COVID happened and no longer people were traveling, my business went to not to zero, but went to almost zero because there's still lots of residuals coming in.
Mhm.
And in both cases, the lesson I learned is that there are times in which the job you have today will disappear and there's nothing you've done about it or could do about it,
Mhm.
right? It's just simply the market change. And when the
Mhm.
market transitions to something else, you as a human are not the job that you play.
Mhm.
And that was a really amazingly cool lesson to learn for me back in 2001. And like I said, I didn't like it when it repeated itself in 2020, but I said, oh, I've seen this movie before. I know how it's going to work. I know
Mhm.
what I need to do now.
Mhm. So, would you do something different if you would give a piece of advice to your younger self?
This is one of my favorite questions. Buy, more instead of uh, 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 doing the things I did, spend a whole lot more money and borrow a whole lot more and buy Amazon and hold on to it.
Mm.
Right. I mean, I think for those people who always wondered, well, what do I invest in? Right? Where do I spend time or money investing? Well, during the dot-com days, if you realize that we were no longer going to have CDs or prior to that 8-track tapes, and you think, hey, who is the best company to focus on streaming media? Oh, let's buy that company. Let's buy into Netflix and just sit on it.
Uh,
right? If you looked at what Facebook was doing, even though they had a super high valuation, or if you looked at what LinkedIn was doing, even though they had a super high in valuation and just held on to it,
mhm,
right? And so the thing is, it's really hard to hold on it when, there are times in which things get lost. But those people who did, and there are if you look at all the stock, there's always some stock in your market that Nvidia is a great example.
mhm,
You're a game player. You knew Nvidia was going to go nuts. Did you buy it and hold on to it? Apple Computer, when they almost went bankrupt, if you knew Apple was going to be the best, at the time, the most highly capped company, now it's Nvidia. Um, would you could you have bought and hold? And so that's probably uh, the rest. The rest is just listen. Probably the biggest thing is if I went back and said pick a different mentor, but if I did that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
yeah.
I had to learn some of the negative things before I could learn the positive. So probably the only thing I could say to myself that wouldn't have changed my life at all is spend more money on that one stock I decide I want to hold on to. Not that I didn't buy and hold on to stocks. It's just, I try to be a little more diversified.
Mhm. Excellent. Now, you said you published several books, and you have most of the writers think that they will get most of the money from the book itself, but you say it is a bit different.
So, so as a publisher, we have published more than 750 books. We do have some books who have done really well. There's a dozen plus authors who have made well into six figures in terms of royalties. That said, for those authors, all but one, for those authors and most of our other authors, the money they make from their book is primarily in their speaking, coaching, or consulting. Right. So we focus primarily on the types of nonprofit books that the author themselves are using for incremental credibility, the type of credibility that helps them open up doors and close more business.
Mhm.
And so we get lost, like as humans. And we'll step back for a second and say, and I wish I kept these recordings. 5 times, so I started my publishing company in 2005, and 5 times in the life of my company, I've had voicemails that say, Mitchell, I have a business idea for a book. First, you have to sign an NDA before I could tell you. No. Okay. Second, it's going to sell more copies than the Bible. And, I just so cannot meet the expectations of somebody that comes like that sometimes I call them back just to hear their thought process, but I couldn't publish them. Right.
Mhm.
Um, and so if for the thought leader who is using their book to open up doors and you start thinking that way, this is just a mindset change.
Mhm.
You can then make sure that you put the books in the hands of the people who need to have them.
Mhm.
Existing customers, prospects, reporters who will write about it, educators who will use it in their classroom. And you need to put the budget in place, not for marketing or advertising or any of that stuff. You need to put the budget in place to find the right people to send it to write a handwritten note, and to physically send your book to a couple hundred people who
Mhm.
are in your world. And
Mhm.
if you did that, life will change for you.
Excellent. Okay, we're about the end. Do you have some final thoughts?
I like your thinking process and your questions. Um, I'm going to say to those that are listening, I'm going to tell you something really simple that apparently is not easy. And that is, it is, feel free, take a look at my stuff and who I am and what I do, and try your best to articulate your CPoP, your customer point of possibilities. I have not run across any human, unless they're really so full of marketing cookie cutter stuff. Um, and I do have an example of somebody who we did his CPOP and he came back 3 months later and said, Mitchell, I got to do it again because I've changed.
Mhm.
But if you're really true to yourself and you're a servant leader, you know who you serve and you can articulate your CPOP. It's who you serve and their pain point or pleasure point in less than 10 words. If you use that as a compass, it will allow you to change all of your interactions going forward in a positive way.
Mhm.
And all I could say, it is extremely simple. It's just not that easy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your wisdom, for a pleasant talk, and I hope we'll meet again.
Oh, I look forward to it. And for those, I'm sure you have this information. Just go to mitchelllevy.com. So one location, mitchelllevy.com. And there you could see what I'm working on, what I'm doing. And if it's important and you feel the need to give me a call, book time on my calendar. And I look forward to talking to you. Once again, mitchelllevy.com. And Robert, thank you for a very intriguing, interesting conversation. It's such a pleasure to get to engage with you.
Pleasure was mine.